My name is Rudi. I'm working with the emergency department that deals with humanitarian emergencies, where I'm leading the policy unit that deals with policy issues related to humanitarian problems.
And I'm Erin, KENNEY. I lead the project on attacks on healthcare.
The aim of the World Health Organization is to ensure that people have access to health. The right to health is an essential human right, and it's enshrined in the WHO Constitution. The attainment of the highest achievable level of healthcare is one of the aims of the World Health Organization. That's why it's so disturbing when healthcare is interfered with. And we see time and again that a number of people give the best of themselves. They take care of people, the health workers, the doctors, the nurses, the ambulance drivers. And then, disturbing as it is, we see that they are attacked, that hospitals are attacked, hospitals are destroyed. And this is really something that we find unacceptable, that today hospitals are coming under attack, that healthcare is interfered with, especially at times when people need it most, like in emergencies, and that people who give the best of themselves are getting attacked, shot, injured, intimidated, while the only thing they really want to do is to provide healthcare to people who are really in need. So that's why we decided that we have to take a stand. The World Health Organization has to take a stand and speak out on behalf of the right to healthcare, on behalf of the healthcare workers who give so much of themselves to provide that healthcare, and to ensure that the message gets across that it is not acceptable today that healthcare is being attacked. And it is an infringement on international humanitarian law. International humanitarian law is quite clear about it, but it's interference with the right to healthcare, and that's why we have this project now at the WHO.
So what do we know so far? We did a review of secondary open source data in 2014 and found that 603 healthcare workers lost their lives due to attacks during emergencies. 958 health workers were injured in 32 different countries. Even one attack on healthcare is one too many, but these numbers are shocking. Our hearts go out to these people who are working so hard, whose work is undermined, whose lives are upturned by this sort of violence. So what are we trying to do about it? Our program has a three-pronged approach. First, we're trying to build evidence. The World Health Assembly tasked the World Health Organization to develop a methodology and tools to gather evidence so we can understand better the extent and nature of the problem, where it's happening, why it's happening. After evidence, the second prong is to advocate, to try to build momentum for change, to look at all the countries where it's happening and bring it into a global level issue. And then the third prong is the action. We're looking to develop standards based on best practice of how we can minimize disruptions to healthcare. Of course, this includes ways to protect healthcare workers, protect facilities, ways to program better so that we minimize the chance of attacks, using health diplomacy at national, regional, and global level to try to get the attacks to stop. For instance, we had success with other agencies in Yemen when there was the ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire to allow aid to get in. And there are other examples of that as well. So while we gather the evidence and we advocate for the attacks to stop, we're also trying to find clever ways, effective ways of protecting healthcare delivery and protecting those who deliver healthcare.
Thank you very much, Erin and Rudi, to be with us, for this monthly topic on this, attack on healthcare. I think it's very important topic, and we are very happy to have, your expertise for this topic discussion with the different members of IFA in French. My first question to you is, why is WHO concerned with attacks on healthcare?
Well, this is really one of WHO's key areas. If we want to ensure that people have access to healthcare when they need it, then it's the World Health Organization's business to ensure that this happens. So WHO is concerned because any interference with the right to health is something that the World Health Organization should be concerned about, because after all, we aim at universal healthcare, we aim at people having access to healthcare when they need it most, and therefore I think it's a good time to speak out for that right to health. And WHO has always really been interested in this, but it seems like we hear about it a little bit more now, because things are in the press. We had an attack on a hospital in Afghanistan just recently. In Syria, hospitals are being attacked. So we hear about it more, but the World Health Organization has always been a defender of the right to health.
We have to remember that these attacks undermine the ability of the workers to provide health care. They're undermining the access to health care. They're violations of international humanitarian law. This is a key area for WHO to speak out on.
And we are not alone on this. Of course, we work with other organizations to speak out on this topic. We are closely working with the International Committee of the Red Cross. We have lots of contacts with Médecins Sans Frontières. So all organizations, the World Medical Association, the International Council for Nurses, we all work together towards the same goal, to ensure healthcare is provided and to ensure healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, all healthcare workers are protected. And the message gets across that they need to be protected because they are providing the healthcare in the most difficult circumstances. So we need to have that respect universally acknowledged. It's not only because it's in international humanitarian law, but we think it's the duty of all parties to respect that work, to respect the commitment of the healthcare workers, and to respect the right to health of all people.
Thank you so much. And the second question for you is, what does WHO know about the magnitude of the problem and the root cause underlying this problem?
Well, we did a review of secondary open source data in 2014, and we found that 603 health workers had lost their lives in attacks, and 958 had been injured. This happened in 32 different countries. We know in Syria, more than half the hospitals are now dysfunctional. We have many reports from many countries on atrocities against healthcare, and we're very concerned about this. So what we have been tasked to do is get a methodology and tools developed that we can endorse that will help us to gather a robust set of data so that we can talk more coherently about the problem, the extent of the problem, the issues involved. So this is what we're working on. We're trying to find out more. Right now we only have the secondary open source data, but we hope to be rolling out our new methodology very soon. We're piloting it now, and we hope by the end of the year or early next year we'll be able to endorse that and move forward to build a stronger evidence base.
And thank you very much, because that effectively clarify where you are now. And from what you know so far, what are the victims?
Well, most of the victims we know are local healthcare workers. These are the people who are always there working in health centers, and they are most vulnerable. So the majority of the victims in terms of healthcare workers are national staff. But of course we hear a lot about also international healthcare workers that are being attacked, but the majority is the local staff because they are everywhere present.
And what are you doing about it?
Our project is a three-pronged approach. First, we're looking at building the evidence base, and that's why we've concentrated these last 2 years on getting a strong methodology and tools for gathering the evidence and understanding the situation better. The second prong is advocacy, building momentum for change, raising the flag, sounding the alarm that this cannot stand, that it's unacceptable. We need to minimize disruptions to healthcare, and attacks against healthcare should not be happening. And the third part is to gather best practice and develop standards that will help us to minimize these disruptions to healthcare, to gather the knowledge and experience we have in these settings and find ways to minimize these disruptions. They can include better programming, for instance, considering threat analysis, working more closely with local security, finding ways to program that will minimize the chance of attacks. There's also health diplomacy, there's actual physical protection. We're looking at many different ways that countries are helping to minimize these disruptions, and we're gathering those best practice.
And in the end, we really want these attacks to stop. We want this to be universally acknowledged, that it's not acceptable that healthcare is being attacked, that healthcare workers are being attacked. So by looking at the extent and the nature of the problem through the data that we can gather, we try to establish the evidence base that we need to then make recommendations that are based on what we find. And in the end, we want to come up with a number of practical recommendations that we will need to promote everywhere to ensure that healthcare workers are safe and health facilities are safe.
Thank you very much. And some say that attacks on health appear to be increasingly frequent. It is true?
Well, this is an impression we have, but that is why, one of the reasons why we're so interested in rolling out our methodology, gathering the data we can, getting a robust set of data, and looking at trend analysis so we can see over time, is it increasing, is it not, where is it increasing, what are the circumstances in which it's increasing or decreasing, so that we can have a solid basis on which to move this file forward.
Because now that we start looking, of course, we find a lot of examples. And well, even one single attack on a healthcare worker, one single attack on a hospital is one too many. So now that we look at it, we see that it happens actually quite frequently. And we are looking at the data to see how the trends are.
Yeah, I think that clarifies a lot about the topic. And why is WHO only entering in this now?
Well, we don't think WHO is entering it on this now, but we would like to believe that only now it gets the attention it deserves. Already in 2012, at the World Health Assembly, the World Health Assembly members tasked WHO to look at gathering data, at developing the methodology to gather data, and to look at the problem of attacks on healthcare workers. So it is not new in a way, but what is new, it seems, is that finally everybody comes to realize this is a problem that we need to address. And WHO is ready to actually address this and speak out more forcefully and do the things that we have always been doing, really, but seem to get the attention it deserves right now. Maybe it's a sad sign of the times that we get this attention right now, but it's something that we have been looking at for quite a while now.
We're quite keen that the momentum is building, in part thanks to partners such as the International Committee of the Red Cross that is trying to move this forward. Many other agencies, partners at the local level, regional level, national, global level are working together to build the momentum on this issue. So as the World Health Organization, we're delighted to see so many interested parties, and we want to move with that together to bring this issue to an even higher place.
Because in the end, it is not a World Health Organization problem. It's a problem for all of us. And we all have to work together to stop these attacks on healthcare workers and healthcare facilities. So we are reaching out to all other parties and saying, together we can. Let's change this, and let's change this for the better. That's what our project is all about.
And what can the rest of us do to support and protect health workers?
Well, there's lots of things you can do. I think together we have to start. The first step is to realize that it is not acceptable that healthcare workers are under attack. And so join us in the advocacy to make sure that all the people who can do something about it, that they hear about it, that this is not okay. And join us in the outreach and in the every time something happens, join us to say, no, this is unacceptable. That's already a first step. And then when we come up with a number of more practical recommendations, that's the time when we have to go and talk to everybody and say, how can we all together put them into practice?
And many of our viewers are experienced practitioners in this area. We invite them to write to us, join us, give us your best practice, tell us your experience, teach us how you found ways to program better to protect healthcare, ways you protected hospitals, ambulances, ways that you coped or worked around the fact that healthcare was under attack, so that we can work together to minimize the disruptions to healthcare that are caused by attacks, while we're also working at the global level to actually stop the attacks, to use health diplomacy to stop it. We welcome the practitioners in your audience to write us and to give us their ideas and their experience.
Because WHO is of course good at making the global policy recommendations, but in the end the action has to happen in the field, at the local level. That's where the action really needs to happen. That's why it's so important that we all gather all the best ideas and make sure we distill that into policy guidance documents. But in the end, it's the practical ideas from the field that we are looking for to make sure that at least we know what works, what doesn't work so far, and then we will work from there.
Erin and Rudi, thank you so much for this very important, inputs. And I am sure with this solid, background you gave today, all the members will come back to us to have this type of practical, solution and experience, and share that through the network. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Isabel.
Thank you.